Leadership is hard, but we're here for you.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you for joining us today for this pre-recorded webinar titled Building Trust in Crisis, Customer Relations in Emergency Management. Today's webinar offers an overview of a 4-hour-long workshop. This workshop includes videos, interactive discussions, exercises, and small table discussions. This webinar will not include all of them, but will describe how they can be conducted. I'm Teresa Quinn. I have over 15 years of experience with the Snohomish Health District, where I served as an emergency management specialist and medical reserve corps coordinator. Before joining the health district, I worked in both the private sector and nonprofit organizations, gaining valuable insights into diverse operational environments. Upon retiring from the health district, I launched a consulting business focused on training and advising organizations in emergency management. I also served as a reservist in emergency response and recovery and teach emergency management remotely as an instructor at a state university. Currently, I reside in rural Minnesota, where I continue to share my expertise and passion for building resilient communities.
Hello, I'm Sean Frederick. I founded Frederick Solutions following over 30 years of healthcare and public health experience. Over the course of that time, I was fortunate to participate in responses to major events ranging from natural disasters, riots, in service, and war. Combined with my experience and desire to develop future leaders, I've taken on the goal of reaching as many people as possible in the realm of building their mental resilience and helping them attain the skills needed to successfully adapt and succeed when crises arise. Today, my talks increase leaders' ability to avoid burnout by increasing their ability to excel through adversity, whether personal or professional.
Our goal is to build resilient communities by developing a strong relationship with our community, our customers. Building trust is key to building resilient communities. This webinar explores the importance of customer relations in emergency management, how we can build trust in crisis. We may not always view the people we serve as customers, but rather as our community. As public servants, they are our customers in all phases of a disaster. Effective customer service begins well before disaster response. Case studies, such as the 1987 Saragossa tornado, highlight the consequences of failing to understand and communicate with our community long before the disaster hits. Saragossa, Texas was a community that was predominantly Spanish-speaking. The case study showed that while the jurisdiction had recently developed a public warning system that went out over the radio and television, it was only transmitted on English language television, not Spanish language television stations in the community. Unfortunately, people who spoke Spanish as their first language did not hear the warning, and people died. This demonstrates the importance of understanding who our community includes and underscores the need for accessible, culturally relevant messaging. This requires ongoing engagement, from preparedness through response, recovery, and mitigation. Proactive customer service strengthens our ability to support people at every stage of a disaster. We'll begin by discussing resilience, then move to identifying and understanding our customers, crafting effective messages, and providing customer service throughout all disaster phases.
Resilience is what emergency managers want for their community. A resilient community that has the resources to come back from a disaster and prepare for future emergencies. In order to instill resilience into our communities, we need to have resilience in our teams. Now, when people talk about resilience, sometimes they think about things like having warning systems, levees, and emergency shelters. That's very important to have, but the resilience of the people is what we'll be discussing in the workshop. We want the people in our community to feel empowered to get through a disaster, to prepare for an emergency, to help their neighbors. Equally, our teams need to have the same type of resilience. Understanding our communities is vital. Who is in the community and what do they care about? Crafting your message is something that we can always improve. We will discuss some communication strategies and things to avoid. We'll also discuss designing strategies to deliver great customer service. We'll look at all phases of disaster: preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. Customers will be impacted by each of these phases, so we need to include our whole community purposely. Who are our customers? Before we can build trust in the community, we need to know who is in the community. Begin by reviewing census data and other sources to understand the demographic makeup of your community. Consider groups such as socioeconomic status, including people who are wealthy, working class, and living in poverty. Age, such as those 18, over 65, and all the ages in between. Ethnic backgrounds: Caucasian, Latino, Asian Pacific Islander, Indigenous, and African American. Be sure to include people with disabilities. Different religious affiliations, the LGBTQ plus individuals, and professions. Be sure to include people who are teachers, business owners, farmers, public service workers. Reflect on whether you personally know these people from each of these groups. Are there groups you haven't connected with yet? Remember, some community members may not be represented in census data. Think about who they are and how you might reach them. While you're considering this, ask yourself, who are in these groups? How can you learn more about them? What steps can you take to connect with them? Once you have an idea of who's in your community, recognize that communities change, they're dynamic. Ask yourself, has your community's demographic makeup changed in the last 30 years? Do you expect it to remain the same or to continue evolving? Understanding these shifts can help you anticipate future needs and opportunities for engagement. Go beyond data. Engage directly. Once you know who lives in your community and where, take steps to engage with them. Visit neighborhoods, attend local gatherings, and listen to the stories and perspectives of people from all backgrounds. As you interact with your community, consider how your own biases and those of others may influence perceptions and decisions. Everyone holds biases, often unconsciously. For example, assumptions based on demographics can lead to misunderstandings or even dangerous situations. A story from a police officer in Las Vegas illustrates this. While responding to an incident, the officer's assumptions about the suspect changed multiple times based on the limited information and the demographics of the area. Ultimately, recognizing and challenging these biases were crucial for safety and effective action. Remember, just as you're trying to understand your community, community members are also forming opinions about you. Stereotypes and biases that community members have learned may work against you and be an obstacle to them trusting you. Trust is built through genuine engagement, openness, and a willingness to challenge assumptions. Encourage dialogue, seek feedback, and remain aware of the biases that shape interactions on all sides. Inclusive community engagement requires ongoing effort, learning about demographics, connecting with underrepresented groups, recognizing change, reflecting on biases, and building trust. By taking these steps, you can foster a more equitable and responsive community, a more resilient community.
One of the exercises that we do throughout the workshop is the Elements of Identity. The Elements of Identity exercise series is designed to help people and participants to explore how personal and organizational perspectives shape our interactions and decisions. Throughout the workshop, we will examine 9 key aspects of identity, each through a dedicated exercise. Today, we're going to just discuss the concept of self. There are no right or wrong answers, only different perspectives that contribute to our collective understanding. During the workshop, we will explore the following elements of identity. Each element represents a spectrum, and most people find themselves somewhere between the two ends. The concept of self has individualist on one end and collectivist on the other. Responsibility and logic has universalism and particularism. Locus of control includes internal and external. Concept of time has monochronic and polychronic. Communication includes personal and virtual. Nonverbal communication goes from expressive to calm. Relationship style has assertive and passive. Authority includes questioning and acknowledgement, and values are from traditional to contemporary. Each of these elements help determine how we will approach different projects and develop strategies. For this exercise, consider where you would fall personally on the spectrum between individualist and collectivist when thinking about the concept of self. To understand this better, an individualist prioritizes personal goals and interests, often looking out for themselves before thinking about the group. Henry David Thoreau was an individualist. He deliberately rejected social norms that he did not agree with and lived according to his own principles and values. A collectivist adheres more to social norms and promotes the good of the group over individual desires. For example, as a Trekkie, I consider Spock's statement a collectivist point of view. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Remember, This is a spectrum. Your position is unique and valid. There is no right or wrong, only different perspectives. Now think about how you feel about the concept of self. Do you consider yourself more of an individualist or a collectivist? Then consider your organization's perspective. Reflect on where you believe your organization or your community falls on the same spectrum. This may differ from your personal perspective. Remember that this is your perspective, not what other people think about the organization or the community. In the workshop, this will be an interactive exercise that will include moving about the room and discussing each element of identity. These exercises are meant to foster insight and inclusivity and are designed to help you recognize and appreciate the variety of perspectives within your team and organization. By understanding where you and others stand on foundational concepts, you can better navigate differences and collaborate effectively. You have already found ways to preserve your values while meeting organizational expectations. These exercises will help you build on that foundation.
Understanding your customer. In this workshop, we'll show several videos to demonstrate different concepts. One of them is a talk from Valerie Alexander where she discusses how the familiar is more acceptable than the unfamiliar. When we encounter something unfamiliar, even if it's accurate, we may question its validity. This tendency can make us resistant to change, especially if we're part of the dominant group. However, ignoring the unexpected can exclude members of our community and cause us to overlook valuable resources. Embracing new perspectives is essential for growth and inclusivity. We will build trust in the community by understanding who our community really is, not just who we think they are. Valerie Alexander suggests a couple of ways to counteract this bias. Step outside your comfort zone by being the only person of your background in the room. While it may feel intimidating, the rewards can be profound. New friendships and deeper learning. This may be something you're already doing or not. For many people who may be part of the minority elements of your particular community, they may have no choice in this and often step into that space on a regular basis. So it's certainly an opportunity where you can learn from them and see the world through their eyes. If you're not ready for that, start by imagining diverse scenarios in your daily life. When you picture a vacation or a conference, intentionally include new characters. Over time, this practice will help to expand your comfort zone. What other strategies can you think of to challenge familiarity, bias, and foster inclusion?
In the workshop, there are quite a few tabletop discussions, similar to tabletop exercises. Tables will have demographic information about a fictional community that they will be working with. Participants will be asked to identify gaps in the demographic data, determine what additional information would help understand the community, and discuss how to find accurate answers. Sources might include surveys, community organizations, online research, or AI tools. Participants will be asked to reflect on the pros and cons of each method. If designing a survey, decide whether to focus on areas of strength, weakness, or both for your organization to learn more how the community sees you. Finally, consider which local agencies or groups might provide relevant information and whether you know individuals who could share insights. Think about how you may want to include community members, an advisory committee, an ambassador program, promoting volunteers, and other projects. In the brainstorming, the following questions will be discussed. We do not expect people to answer the questions, but instead to consider where they will find the answers to the questions. For instance, if you decided to use surveys as well as connecting with different organizations, you may say that a question could be answered with the information gathered by connecting with the HOA of the 55+ community, along with the survey that was sent to the community. Questions would be, what is important to the people in your community? Who is important to the people in your community? What will the people in your community do, and what will they not do? And what may inspire or motivate them to do something that is difficult?
Communication is a key to building trust. Our workshop will go through several communication strategies. The first is active listening. Practice active listening in both one-on-one and community settings. By being present and attentive, you demonstrate care for your community. Maintain professional boundaries while showing genuine concern. Regularly check in with yourself and ensure you can continue to show empathy to survivors throughout your work. Patience. If pressed for time, explain that your goal is to help them efficiently, such as, I understand that you want to get this taken care of. As soon as I get this information from you, I can work on this directly and get it resolved more quickly for you. Clear communication. Speak slowly and clearly, especially during crises when people may not process information as they would in routine situations. Use interpretation services when needed and confirm understanding frequently. Explaining concepts in multiple ways. Repeat key points in different ways to help people move past preconceived notions. Check for understanding and be prepared to rephrase if needed. Maintaining composure. Be conscious of your tone and frustration level. Remember, your goal is to communicate a message, not your emotions. People first language. Refer to people by putting the person first. People with disabilities instead of the disabled. Recognize that individuals may prefer to be addressed in a certain way. Meet people where they are. They may want to be referred to with or without people first language. Follow up. When closing a conversation, summarize all the things covered to ensure understanding. Address new concerns as they arise, and then ask again if there's anything further. Self-care. Monitor your emotions. If you find yourself becoming frustrated, condescending, or emotionally affected, take a break or a day off if needed. Remember, you cannot change another person, but you can manage your own responses and well-being.
Here are some communications hazards to avoid. Stereotypes and bias. Avoid all stereotypes, even those you believe are positive. Assuming someone's abilities or interests are based on group identities such as gender, race, or age undermines individual achievement and can set unrealistic expectations. Remember, we all carry learned stereotypes. Be mindful and challenge those assumptions when crafting messages. Language to avoid. Negative language. Focus on prevention and hope, not destruction or fear. For example, instead of saying, flooding could cause people to lose everything, say, we want to reduce the impact of flooding and prepare our homes to lessen possible damage. Unintended consequences. Be aware that words can be misinterpreted. If someone points out an issue with your message, listen and learn rather than becoming defensive. Responding to grief and difficult emotions. Validate emotions. Recognize and acknowledge what the person is feeling, whatever that emotion is, anger, grief, frustration. Then help them work through and around their feelings to address the situation. For example, saying something like, that sounds really frustrating. Let's see what we can do to work on the situation.
Preparedness. We cannot respond to every person, but preparing every person is a possibility. If we can build a relationship with our community in the preparedness phase, we can work to make the next two phases easier than they would be without it. Studies have shown that for every dollar spent on preparedness, we can save $10 in response and recovery. Often, when we're in preparedness, we worry about spending any money at all on preparing people for something that may or may not happen this year, or even next year. When the bad thing happens, though, we don't sit down and think about whether we should send out the fire trucks to rescue people. We just do it. So if we can build relationships in the community now, we can provide preparedness tools before the disaster. We can help people understand what they can do to protect themselves and their property in the face of disaster. We can build a more resilient community. As we move through the different phases of disaster, preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation, think about how trust will help to make the community more resilient. In the workshop, there are several tabletop discussions in each phase of the disaster, using the same information on the demographics of the fictional community. In preparedness, we give each table a hazard to prepare for, and then ask them how they will provide customer service in this preparedness phase. We're not asking them to build a preparedness plan, but to build customer service into the preparedness plan. These are some of the questions they will work on. How will you communicate with the community? Do you have only one way, or are there multiple ways? What will you tell people if they ask how they can help in a disaster? Will you have ways for people to help prepare the community for a disaster?
Navigating the disaster stages in a response. When a disaster strikes, regardless of the specific hazard, the event demands that communities respond. It is important to recognize that disasters unfold in stages for individuals, and each person may experience these stages at different times and in different ways. As we move through the disaster, we must remain aware of where people might be in their personal journey through the disaster. The first one is the heroic stage, and this stage comes immediately after the incident. Many people display remarkable heroism, even though they may be afraid. While some people might be too traumatized to function, most people are motivated to help and take immediate action to support others. Then comes the honeymoon phase. In this stage, hope and optimism are prevalent. Despite the challenges, people come together, finding strength in community support. However, this stage is often brief. Then comes the disillusionment stage. As time passes, frustration and anger can set in. Individuals may feel that resources are unfairly distributed, or that assistance is insufficient, leading to increased tension and dissatisfaction. Reconstruction phase. Eventually, the community begins to rebuild. Collaboration and resilience become central as people work together to restore what was lost. There is no set timeline for these stages, and individuals move through them at different rates. It is common to encounter several people in the same neighborhood who are each at different stages from the others. Our role is to provide support and customer service to everyone, regardless of where they are in this process. Response may last hours or weeks, depending on the severity of the disaster. During this time, people may be in the heroic, honeymoon, or disillusionment stages, which can add complexity to an already chaotic situation. As discussed, it is best to meet people where they are, without making assumptions. Active listening is key to understanding their needs and concerns.
Response, as mentioned earlier, there are table discussions for each phase of the disaster. Each table will have more information on the hazard they're working on to go with their demographic information. They will then discuss how they will provide customer service to people in the response phase of the disaster. We emphasize that they're not building a response plan, but they're building into that plan how we will utilize customer service. We want them to ask these questions. How will people be able to request assistance? How will people know where the resources are? Will you have a recording with information or an emergency call center or other ways to communicate with the community, or a combination of them? How will you provide resources? House to house, at centers? How will you utilize spontaneous volunteers? How will you utilize trained volunteers? How will you let the community know about outages and closures, including businesses, nonprofits, roads, etc.? How will you determine where people are in the phases of the disaster, heroic, honeymoon, or disillusionment? How will that impact your communication? How will you utilize those people that identify themselves as wanting to volunteer in the preparedness section?
Recovery. The immediate disaster has ended, but damage remains. People have been rescued and are receiving emergency care. Unsafe homes and businesses, as well as roads and bridges, have been closed. Now the community faces ongoing challenges. Injured individuals unable to work, displaced residents, businesses closing or relocating, and transportation difficulties due to closures. Although the immediate threat is gone, long-term issues must be addressed before normalcy returns. During recovery, most people move from the honeymoon stage to disillusionment or reconstruction. Your approach may need to change, and not every strategy will suit every survivor. Be flexible and creative in meeting people's needs. Gathering damage assessments can be simple or difficult. Survivors may find reporting damages intrusive. Seek comfortable ways to collect this information. Think about how you will utilize customer service in the recovery phase of disaster, taking into account the different stages that people may be in at the time.
Mitigation. Mitigation involves actions a community takes to prevent or reduce future hazards. Engaging customers in mitigation leads to better outcomes for both emergency managers and survivors. Without their input, we might overlook important impacts. Building relationships with customers turns them into partners, strengthening community efforts. When developing mitigation strategies, ensure that addressing one hazard does not worsen another. If you have a mitigation plan, use customer feedback to keep it current. Here are a few strategies to include the community. Invite community members to evaluation and planning sessions. Schedule meetings at times convenient for both workers and retirees. Select accessible locations. Include all groups, all age groups, youth, elders, and everyone in between. Provide accommodations such as translation, ASL, and other assistance for people with disabilities.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for watching this webinar. We have seen how building trust can help in making communities more resilient, and we have also seen how a lack of trust can work against us. Our workshop goes into more depth on all of the concepts in this webinar. Please let us know if you are interested in learning more about it as well as other trainings. Thank you again.